The most popular kit lens to the EF-M system is the 15 to 45 millimeter lens. Now both the Canon M50 and the Canon M6 Mark II comes with the 15 to 45 millimeter lens. But if you want to buy a second lens, what lens should you get? In this video, we're going to talk about just that. Coming up. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Roger, and on this channel I talk about cameras, tech gear and videography. And if this is something that you're into, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That will really help me a lot. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you just want to say hi, you can also do that. So like I said in the intro, the most popular kit lens that comes with the Canon EF-M system is the Canon 15 to 45 millimeter lens. Now this lens is a really good starter lens. It's a versatile lens. You have an option of shooting quite wide. You have 15 millimeter at the widest, but you also have an option of zooming in to get that close-up shot if you want to, and you can zoom all the way into 45 millimeters. Now what you have to be aware of is that the Canon EF-M cameras uses an APS-C sensor. This sensor is a cropped sensor. That means that you have to multiply the focal length of your EF-M lens with 1.6. That means that this kit lens that's 15 to 45 actually is a 24 to 72 millimeter equivalent. So you actually don't get a 15 millimeter wide angle, you get a 24 millimeter wide angle. And when you zoom in, you don't get to zoom into 45 millimeter, you actually get to zoom in to 72 millimeters. But what you also get with this lens is a variable aperture. That means at the widest, at 15 millimeter or 24 millimeter equivalent, you get an aperture of 3.5. And when you zoom all the way into 45 millimeter or 72 millimeter equivalent, you get an aperture of 6.3. What's negative about this kind of aperture is that you don't let in that much light to your sensor, so this lens doesn't work that great in darker environments. That means that if you're going to shoot something indoors, you probably have to bump up your ISO, and with a higher ISO you always get in danger of introducing more noise and grain to your pictures or to your video. And what's also kind of negative with that kind of aperture is that you don't get that nice blurry background. You don't get that bokeh effect that's really popular nowadays. But what's positive with this lens is the size of this lens. This is a really small and compact lens. You can just throw this with your camera into a backpack and you're ready to go. Now what's also really nice about this lens is that it is an STM lens. That means that it has Canon's stepper motor technology inside. And this stepper motor system or technology was introduced into the lenses in order to get us more smooth or quieter focusing system. That means if you're going to shoot video, the STM lens will give you a more smooth and quieter focusing ability. And it also has image stabilization inside of the lens, optical image stabilization. And the optical image stabilization inside of the lens will help you to get rid of that shakiness that you might experience if you're doing handheld video or handheld photography. So that's the kit lens. But what lens should you buy as your second lens? Well, the answer to this question might be different depending on who you ask, because everybody has different needs when it comes to their lenses. What are you going to take pictures of? What are you going to make video of? And what kind of focal length do you need? What kind of aperture do you need? And what kind of price range are we talking about? For me to answer this question, I need to talk about two lenses. The first lens is the EFM 22mm f2.0 STM lens from Canon. And the second lens I'm going to talk about is the EF 50mm f1.8 STM lens, also from Canon. Both of these lenses have a fixed focal length. That means you don't have an option of zooming in. Well, you can zoom with the prime lenses, you just have to move closer to your subject. And this might not be a bad thing, because taking pictures or shooting a video with a fixed focal length or a prime lens, this forces you to move around. This forces you to think about the composition, thinking about what kind of angle you want, how close or far away from your subject that you need to be to get the best composition inside of your frame. So I think that using a prime lens will only make you a better photographer or videographer for your upcoming projects. The 22mm lens is an EFM lens. That means that this lens was made for the M cameras from Canon. It fits directly onto your camera and you don't have to use an adapter to get it to work. And the size of this thing is really ridiculous. It's really small. So if you get this lens and the kit lens and the M50 or the Canon M6 Mark II, you have a really compact camera gear and you can take it with you almost anywhere. What's good about the 22mm is that it has an f-stop of 2. That means you can get really blurry backgrounds or bokeh using this lens. What's also good about this lens is that it is a macro lens. You can get as close as 15 centimeters to your object and you will still get a really nice clear picture. So you have a really good lens with this 22, but you have to consider the cropped sensor, and the 22mm is actually an equivalent of a 32.5mm lens. So a 32.5mm is quite a versatile focal length. You can use it as a portrait lens, but you can also use it as a landscape lens and a street photography lens. So you can use this lens to almost everything. Now when it comes to the price of this lens, it's about $200 on Amazon for the 22mm Pancake lens from Canon. The next lens I want to talk about is the Canon 50mm 1.8. This is also known as the Nifty 50, and I think it's one of the more popular lenses that almost everybody has. This lens has an aperture of 1.8. With this lens you will get really nice blurry backgrounds, or bokeh effects as it's also called. 50mm is what people would call a standard lens. The 50mm is equivalent to what your eye is seeing, so when you take video or photographies using a 50mm lens, the end result will be as you were there looking at it with your own eyes. And the 50mm is also a really versatile lens. You can use it for landscape photography, you can use it for street photography, and it's really excellent for portrait photography with that aperture of 1.8. Now what you have to know about the Canon 50mm Nifty 50 is that it is an EF mount lens. That means to use this on your M50 or your Canon M6 Mark II, you have to get an adapter in order to get it to work. So even though this is a really cheap lens, it's around $125 on Amazon, you have to get the adapter in order to get it to work, and that will be an extra cost when it comes to this lens. And you have to be aware of the cropped sensor factor, because if you're using this lens with a normal adapter, this will be an equivalent of an 80mm lens. So for you to use this on your M50 or your M6 Mark II, you will need to get a speed booster in order to get the 50mm equivalent. So which one of these lenses should you buy as your second lens? They both have a good aperture of 1.8 on the nifty 50 and an f2 on the 22mm, and they both are an STM lens, which means that they are really silent if you're going to use it for filming. The price is $200 for the 22mm, and for the nifty 50 it comes at $125. So the 22mm is a little bit more expensive, but with the nifty 50 you need an adapter, and the nifty 50 with the adapter will be more expensive than the 22mm. If you're like me, I got the Canon adapter included in the box when I got the Canon M6 Mark II. So I got the Canon adapter, and I also got the Viltrox speed booster. That means that when I got the nifty 50, I now can use the nifty 50 as a 56.5mm focal length using the Viltrox speed booster, but I can also use this nifty 50 as an 80mm lens if I'm using the Canon adapter. This all because of the cropped sensor that's on the Canon M6 Mark II and the Canon M50. So for me, the nifty 50 is a more versatile lens. I can use this lens to more things than I can with the 22mm, because I have both the speed booster and the Canon adapter. But if you're not planning on getting an adapter for your Canon M50 or Canon M6 Mark II or whatever M camera you have, I would recommend that you get the 22mm f2 STM lens from Canon. So that's it for this week. If you got something out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. That will really help me a lot. And if you want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. That will really help me also. And click that bell icon too, then you will get a notification every time I come out with a new video. And if you already bought a second lens, please leave me a comment in the comment section down below. What lens did you buy and why did you buy that lens? And if you're in the stage of planning to get a second lens, what lenses are you looking at and why? So that's it. Maybe I will see you in another video. Bye.